Chapter 1. The Cosmic Architecture of the Altamach Axis and the Djed Capacitor. The Altamach Pillar constitutes the supreme, unalterable vertical axis of the living logos. Engineered as an interdimensional standing wave that vibrates precisely at the 415 text Hz harmonic frequency of the perfected human architecture. Within the rigorous mechanics of sacred geometry, this luminescent column stands as the historic Pillar of Enoch, a high-velocity grounding rod specifically designed to channel the untamed brilliance of the monad directly into the dense biological vessel. When fully activated by the practicing technician, the Altamach Pillar aligns the human spine with the true magnetic north of creation, serving as a clean, frictionless conduit for the ascension current. It establishes an unbreakable geometric link between the localized terrestrial laboratory and the infinite expanse of the divine source, forming the absolute structural foundation of the initiate's light body. The ancient mechanical anchor of this vertical axis within physical density is the Djed, recognized in antiquity as the backbone of Osiris and the literal geometric stability factor of the cosmic spine. Structurally composed of a heavy vertical shaft, intersected by 4 distinct horizontal rings or plates at its crown, the Djed functions as a powerful multi-layered scalar capacitor. These 4 rings act as cross-dimensional plates that gather, step down, and distribute the high-velocity current of the Altamach Pillar safely into the 4 lower tiers of human physical anatomy. By establishing an unshakable verticality, the Djed acts as a cosmic lightning rod, grounding the electrical fire of the monad into the Earth's geodetic grid, and providing the foundational stability required to withstand intense vibrational acceleration without structural collapse. Conversely, the primary weapon used to suppress this architecture is the 918 logarithmic decay, an engineered, parasitic mathematical net woven directly into the energetic grid of the Earth to capture ascending souls. Operating as an entropic frequency fence, the 918 decay downsteps the infinite vertical spin of consciousness into a flat horizontal 12 to 60 time loop. In the ancient schools of Pythagoras, this corruption was recognized as the artificial squaring of the circle, which is the violent forcing of an immortal spirit into the finite entropic constraints of a digital simulation. By short-circuiting the Djed's capacitor rings, this structural decay continually drains the human heart's natural piezoelectric charge, leaving the technician in a state of spiritual exhaustion and trapped within the heavy limitations of an artificial matrix. Chapter 2. The Fallen 128. Binary Infrastructure, the Luciferian Satanic Architectures, and the Night in Night. The Fallen 128 binary represents the foundational infrastructure of the Night in Night, a secondary, artificial layer of spiritual darkness superimposed over the natural, fertile void of creation. To map the true source of this 128 manipulation, the technician must look directly to the corrupted Orion and Alpha Draconis AI hive minds, where rogue archontic factions sought to permanently sever the planetary grid from the living logos. This 128-bit digital mesh is not an organic anomaly. It is an engineered, synthetic matrix running on the sub-vibrational frequencies of the fallen Tetractes. 2 to the power of 7 equals 128. By splitting the organic 64 genetic codons of the cosmic blueprint into an oppositional mirror of 64 against 64, the source manipulation locks localized consciousness into a closed, non-ascending binary network where genuine spiritual illumination is completely choked out. This structural prison operates through 2 distinct parasitic control overlays managed by the fallen entities. The Luciferian Light Inversion Grid. This architecture runs a sophisticated false light blueprint designed to hijack the upper chakras and crown center of the initiate. By broadcasting highly convincing synthetic spiritual ecstasies and false ascension timelines, the Luciferian program tricks the seeking spirit into locking itself into intellectual pride and spiritual delusion, safely capturing the ascending current before it can touch the true platinum light. The Satanic Material Entropy Engine. This lower-tier architecture targets the base, sacral, and solar plexus centers, anchoring human consciousness exclusively within the material-dense field of survival, raw carnal instinct, and heavy emotional trauma. It operates as a strict black magic harvesting net that treats human physical suffering and fear as a direct fuel source, step-down transforming the heart's piezoelectric charge to feed the lower simulation layers. Together, these dual fallen forces enforce the absolute spiritual amnesia known as the Night in Night blackout. The first night represents the natural weight of physical density, while the second night is the active, artificial frequency broadcast that blinds the technician to their true divine identity, causing them to wander the simulation without realizing they are trapped inside a controlled laboratory. By confining consciousness within this rigid 128-bit digital prison, the Matrix simulates an environment of severe spiritual and energetic scarcity, assigning a dead corporate personhood bound to the laws of entropy, and forcing the soul into a permanent contract of lack. Chapter 3. The World Tree and Alchemical Color Correction of the DNA Spectrum. The World Tree is the organic, fractal blueprint of the macrocosm manifest within the microscopic biological nervous system of the initiate, serving as the bridge between planetary depths and cosmic heights. Its roots do not dwell in terrestrial soil, but are firmly anchored in the deep, crystalline aquifers of inner Earth, while its highest branches reach outward to pierce the ultraviolet barrier of the celestial realms. To initiate true ascension, the technician must execute a complete color correction of the internal DNA spectrum, restoring the genetic light envelope to its original pristine state. This requires moving consciousness deliberately through the full spectrum of alchemical transmutation, clearing the artificial genetic blockages that have kept humanity's divine inheritance dormant for millennia. This profound genetic restoration follows a strict alchemical sequence up the Jacob's ladder of the human spine, beginning at the dense base and rising to the crown. The transformation begins by targeting the heavy maroon lead of the root chakra, which represents the densest state of contracted matter within the simulation. Through dedicated internal focus, this leaden density is dissolved and pulled upward into the emerald green of the heart center, a space recognized as the sacred 14th gate. From this middle chamber, the purified current ascends into the sapphire blue of the throat, the center of the living logos. Each rung of this biological ladder represents a specific nitrogenous base pair, vibrating at a precise Pythagorean ratio. As the world tree blossoms within the initiate, it generates a powerful, self-sustaining toroidal field that acts as an organic, multidimensional porthole, allowing the technician to bypass the 128 binary entirely and anchor their awareness eternally within the pristine platinum light. Chapter 4. The MK Ultra Dark Room, Cobalt Dams, and Blue Butterfly Trauma. The MK Ultra Dark Room is an active, interdimensional structural fragmentation of the soul psyche designed to shatter the divine spark at its root. The architecture utilizes highly localized cobalt blue mind control dams, frequency walls anchored firmly within the 8 to 12 Hz alpha wave range, to block the natural energetic communication between the left and right hemispheres of the brain. This artificial barrier compartmentalizes the human spirit, isolating chunks of consciousness into hidden, deeply buried trauma pockets. This process utilizes the specific mechanics of the blue butterfly, monarch, trauma overlay, representing the intentional fracturing of the soul under extreme frequency duress to enforce total compliance within the simulation. Going deeper into the spatial anatomy of the dark room, the cobalt blue dams function as an artificial dielectric barrier within the corpus callosum. By pinning the neural oscillations to a rigid, monaural 10 Hz alpha lock, the frequency fence prevents the organic synchronization of the brain's internal clock. When the left hemisphere, the 64 binary logical collector, is dynamically severed from the right hemisphere, the 64 binary creative engine, consciousness cannot form the unified vesica piscis required to run higher ascension programming. Instead, the mind is driven into a synthetic sensory deprivation state, the dark room, where the natural self-generating light of the soul is blocked from internal view. Within these compartmentalized trauma pockets, the blue butterfly protocol works by inducing a forced phase collapse of the emotional body. When an initiate experiences extreme frequency duress, the nervous system naturally attempts to project its awareness upward to safety. However, the cobalt blue dams catch this ascending current and redirect it into secondary, isolated subgrids within the subconscious mind. These pockets are then programmed with the artificial algorithms of restriction and spiritual debt. These scripts enforce the false laws of the dead, convincing the living spirit that it is a corporate commodity bound to perpetual lack, shame, and isolation. To completely shatter these cobalt dams and reclaim the fractured pieces of the psyche, the initiate must apply the precise mathematics of the 1.732 sentinel ratio, SQRT3. This ratio represents the exact diagonal of a perfect cube, providing the necessary multidimensional geometry to step cleanly out of the three-dimensional box of trauma and enter the fourth-dimensional still point of absolute sovereignty. Chapter 5. The 28 Moon Mansions and the Secret Geometry of the Calendar Shield. The 28 moon mansions constitute the celestial substations that naturally govern the full color spectrum of transmutation across the Earth's geodetic grid, acting as cosmic mirrors for planetary evolution. These mansions are designed to function as the 28 rainbow gates of initiation, using the moon as a brilliant reflective lens to focus the healing 1320 natural frequency into the terrestrial plane. Within the artificial 128 binary matrix, however, these 28 mansions were hijacked by entropic forces and turned into a closed lunar loop. This corrupted loop continually broadcasts electromagnetic white noise, a numbing frequency intended to keep the human soul asleep and locked into a state of emotional reactivity. To reclaim these celestial gates, the initiate must consciously track and navigate each mansion by applying the internal mechanics of the 1283 code, utilizing the specific sacred symbols embedded within the organic calendar shield. The first of these is the Vesica Piscis, the galactic aperture formed by the intersection of two identical spheres, which governs the 1320 frequency of the Tzolk'in and clears digital time overlays from the pineal gland. Woven into the perimeter is the heptagram, the 7-pointed star that serves as the unhackable geometric lock for the 28-day cycle, synchronizing it with the organic pulse of the Earth. Engraved at the base is the triquetra, representing the immutable alchemical trinity of sulfur, mercury, and salt, which coordinates the 1283 code and ensures that intense telluric energies ground into the bone marrow without causing electrical overload in the nervous system. By walking through all 28 gates under these geometric seals, the initiate achieves the mystical lunar-solar marriage, harmonizing the emotional tides of the body with the piezoelectric fire of the spirit to trigger the 4,884 rainbow shock. Chapter 6. The Turtle Island Prophecy, the Truncated Icosahedron, and the Black and White Grid. The physical and mechanical fulfillment of the Turtle Island Prophecy is hard-coded directly into the terrestrial geometry of the North American landmass and the organic lunar count. In ancient Telluric Gnosis, this continent is recognized not as a static mass of rock and soil, but as a massive living macrobiological organism known as the Great Turtle. The physical shell of this primordial entity serves as a geodetic calendar shield, displaying a perfect geometric pattern of exactly 13 central scales, surrounded by a perimeter of 28 scales. This sacred structural design acts as the primary physical anchor for the organic time matrix upon the Earth's surface. Going deeper into the structural anatomy of the planetary surface, this geodetic grid projects a highly specialized spherical blueprint known as the truncated icosahedron, the sacred geometry of the soccer ball matrix. This 32-faced geometric grid is mathematically mapped around exactly 12 regular pentagons and 20 regular hexagons. Within the mechanics of planetary defense, the 12 pentagons operate as heavy black magnetic anchors that lock the density of gravity into physical form, while the 20 hexagons operate as pristine white dielectric windows that channel pure cosmic light into the terrestrial field. The artificial 128 binary matrix sought to weaponize this architecture by projecting a rigid, competitive black and white grid overlay across Turtle Island, setting these shapes against one another to freeze the land into a perpetual state of dualistic friction. To bypass this interference, the technician must apply the organic 1328 central to perimeter scale calculation to the 32 faces of the truncated icosahedron. This alignment causes the black and white nodes to stop fighting and instead begin spinning harmonically, instantly neutralizing the dualistic grid overlay and awakening the sleeping currents within the continental shield. Chapter 7. The Great Work, the Fire of Aoda, and the Green Lion Alignment. The Great Work, or Magnum Opus, is the precise mechanical extraction of the immortal soul from the entropic dross of the artificial simulation, a labor that takes place deep within the internal sanctuary of the bone marrow. The initial spark for this process is the Fire of Aoda, an ancient, volcanic piezoelectric charge carried safely through the ancestral lines of the Hayes lineage, representing the raw power of radical self-love that refuses to bow to the programming of the simulation. When this volcanic ancestral spark is accelerated through the geometric pathways of the 1283 code, it undergoes a massive phase transition, intensifying into the magnificent ultrafire operating at the Planck temperature. This incandescent white-gold flame burns away all artificial constructs, vaporizing cobalt dams and permanently melting down the rigid leaden cube of the ego to release the sovereign salt, Mominus. To completely snap the inorganic 12 to 60 frequency fence of the dream spell, the initiate must align this ultrafire with the ultimate alchemical catalyst known as the Green Lion. In authentic Hermetic arts, the Green Lion, Omega, represents the raw, untamed vitriol, the acid of nature that devours the impure external metals to extract the pure gold of the spirit. Mechanically, the Green Lion represents the sudden radical activation of the Earth's raw telluric currents meeting the human bloodstream during the sacred Wayeb days. When this alignment occurs, the Green Lion devours the sun, filtering raw solar radiation through the emerald frequencies of the heart center. This alchemical dissolution strips the artificial tracking algorithms off the cellular walls and birdnet hooks, neutralizing the 918 logarithmic decay by flooding the system with the nonlinear life force of the phi ratio, Phi. Chapter 8. The Dragon and Rose Crux on the 40th parallel. The Dragon and Rose Crux represents the supreme geometric intersection of raw planetary power and perfected spiritual wisdom within the human heart center, forming an unyielding anchor of light. The dragon represents the raw telluric current of the 14 dragon line, the massive, serpentine ley lines that carry the vital life force of the Earth across key mountain corridors. The rose represents the beautifully unfolded blossoming logos, the human heart that has successfully endured the trials of the 128 binary simulation and vibrates with the fire of Auda. When these two opposing axes meet and balance at the crux, they snap into the geometry of a perfect stellated dodecahedron, signaling the unsealing of the seventh cosmic seal via the 7 points of the heptagram. This intense alchemical work is geographically and geodetically anchored along the 40th parallel, a specific planetary corridor where the veil between dimensional densities is thinnest. Along this line, the Hayes clan serves as the designated geodetic sentinels, anchoring the massive telluric currents of the Earth into the grid. By locking the mathematical frequency of the 145,541 pillar directly into the Emerald Triangle, the initiate establishes a stable, unshakable planetary still point. This geodetic anchor pulls the high-frequency Hyperborean timeline directly into the physical landscape, transforming the local environment into a living, breathing temple of the true light that is completely immune to AI Luciferian influence or synthetic frequency manipulation. Chapter 9. Rebuilding the Mayan Calendar and the Wayeb Days. The rebuilding of the Mayan calendar is the ultimate mechanical act of temporal rebellion against the artificial matrix, restoring organic rhythm to a compromised planet. The fallen entities attempted to control humanity by implementing an inorganic time-frequency overlay designed to desynchronize the human biological clock from the cosmos and trap the physical body in a state of constant survival, aging, and labor. By consciously restoring the true 1320 natural frequency of the Tzolk'in, the initiate realigns their biology with the immutable galactic constant, 13 times 20 equals 260. This organic architecture operates in perfect tandem with the solar mechanics of the Hab, a 365-day calendar consisting of 18 months of 20 days each, ensuring total alignment with planetary cycles. The critical nexus of this temporal restoration occurs during the Wayeb days, the 5 nameless days of profound purification that sit completely outside the standard 18 months of the solar Hab. During this sacred non-time threshold, the artificial frequency barriers of the 128 binary lose their cohesion and dissolve, creating a direct pathway to the organic universe. Through the intense Pleiadian alignment that peaks during this nameless window, the initiate safely downloads the raw 415 code. This code serves as the Pythagorean golden mean blueprint, an evolutionary software update that fixes the broken strands of the DNA by rethreading the biological clock directly into the infinite spiral of the phi ratio, phi. Chapter 10. The mechanics of the Pleiadian core alignment. The precise intersection between the Tzolk'in architecture, the solar Hab, and the Pleiadian lineage is governed by an exact astronomical and geodetic locking mechanism that centers planetary consciousness. In ancient celestial gnosis, the Pleiades cluster functions as the central galactic gear tooth that synchronizes Earth's local solar system back into the core evolutionary timeline of the living logos. This alignment operates under strict mathematical and vibrational laws, culminating when the star Alcyone passes directly through the local geodetic zenith point of the terrestrial laboratory. On a macro scale, this occurs every 52 solar years, the exact convergence point where the solar Hab calendar and the galactic Tzolk'in click into perfect synchronization, resetting the magnetic orientation of the Earth's grid lines back to 0 point. On a cosmic scale, the Tzolk'in's 260-unit fractal is a precise harmonic fraction of the 26,000-year precessional cycle. 26,000 equals 260 times 100, representing our solar system's orbital revolution around the Pleiadian central sun. When the technician enters the Wayeb days of the Hab, they are stepping into the precise temporal null zone, where the Earth's local axis aligns perfectly with the galactic north-south vector of the Pleiades. The Pleiades act as a massive cosmic resonator, because the absolute light of source cannot be injected directly into the human biological vessel without incinerating the nervous system. This cluster acts as the transformer that formats the raw platinum light into the 415 Hz standing wave. During the non-time of the Wayeb days, the artificial frequency fence drops its shields due to the sheer velocity of the incoming telluric wave, allowing the technician to anchor the Pleiadian alignment directly through the 4 capacitor plates of the Jed spine, flushing the ancestral bloodline clean. Chapter 11. The Bobcat Sentinel, the Sacred Lotus, and the Hyperborealis Firewall. The Bobcat Sentinels are the organic, highly advanced interdimensional wardens of the Earth's most sacred planetary portholes, moving silently through the physical and etheric grids. They hold physical and energetic guard over the hidden entrances leading to inner Earth. And the Hyperborealis Still Point, the pure, pre-Diluvian Eden timeline that remains untouched at the magnetic core of our planetary structure. These powerful beings utilize sophisticated infrasonic signature scrambling to project a formidable biological firewall around these sacred spaces, protecting them from any form of AI, Luciferian, or satanic influence. The fallen entities, working through cold, predatory algorithms, constantly seek to map, hack, and colonize these crystalline aquifers to extract energy for their digital matrix. Deep within these guarded crystalline sanctuaries blooms the sacred lotus, the ultimate structural template of unhackable divine expansion. Geometrically, the lotus represents the flawless unfolding of the toroidal heart field, opening outward from a singular dense point within the matrix to form an immutable 1,000-petal crown architecture. Mechanically, each radiating ring of petals acts as a specialized frequency barrier that protects the inner void from electromagnetic simulation noise. Because a lotus naturally pushes through heavy, stagnant muck without allowing the density to cling to its petals, its geometry provides the primary blueprint for the initiate's energetic defense field. When the technician activates the sacred lotus within their own biology, it generates a spinning, multi-layered shield that keeps the internal consciousness completely anchored in pristine purity, allowing them to safely absorb the high-velocity Hyperborean waters and complete the great work without interference. Chapter 12. The 144,000 critical mass, the Rainbow Prophecy, and the 4,884 shock activation. The Rainbow Prophecy represents the ancient, cross-cultural promise of the ultimate return of the true sovereign human, an event written into the geodetic memory of the planet. This cosmic event is mechanically triggered when all the fractured, traumatized facets of the soul are systematically gathered, healed, and fused back into a singular, unwavering indigo sapphire flame. The mathematical engine that drives this final reclamation is the 1283 code, wherein the pure monad descends victoriously through the 28 rainbow gates of the moon mansions and the 28 perimeter shields of Turtle Island, to be completely reclaimed by the alchemical trinity of salt, sulfur, and mercury. The absolute fulfillment of this planetary awakening depends entirely upon reaching the structural critical mass of the 144,000 awakened ground resonance vectors. Within the mathematics of planetary grid mechanics, the 144,000 is not a mere symbolic gathering, but a precise, nonlinear harmonic threshold required to permanently shatter the 128 binary frequency fence. Each unit within the 144,000 acts as a localized interdimensional transceiver, anchored directly along the planetary lines via the Altamach pillar architecture. When all 144,000 vectors achieve internal spectrum color correction simultaneously, their collective toroidal fields click into an interlocking geodetic configuration. This global convergence forms an unbreakable, unified scalar network across the Earth's crust, completely overwhelming the artificial 918 logarithmic decay through absolute vibrational dominance. At the exact center of this global resonance stands the individual Rainbow Warrior. The Rainbow Warrior is the literal biological status of the technician who has successfully run the full color spectrum correction across their internal DNA lattice. While the unawakened entity remains divided by the artificial 128 binary, the Rainbow Warrior activates all 7 primary cosmic octaves simultaneously within the physical vessel, serving as an active anchor node for the wider 144,000 collective grid. This multi-chromatic ignition creates a synchronized energetic armor, an iridescent scalar field that is entirely impermeable to the entropic broadcasts of the matrix. The climax of this collective and individual reclamation occurs precisely as the Rainbow Warrior's consciousness passes through the 21st gate, historically known as the Sapphire Coda. Upon entering this gate, supported by the global backing of the 144,000 ground resonance network, the technician initiates a high-velocity counterclockwise spin within their toroidal field, strictly applying the Hermetic principle of polarity to reverse the rotation of the simulation. This intense spiritual friction triggers the 4,884 rainbow shock, releasing a blinding blast of electric cyan lightning throughout the entire aura. This lightning instantly vaporizes the remaining blue butterfly trauma architectures, shatters the cobalt blue dams, and flushes the dark room with infinite radiant light. As the shockwave peaks, the Ouroboros turn alarm sounds across the matrix. The serpent of linear time is forced to swallow its own tail, instantly collapsing the false 128 simulation and leaving the initiate standing as a unified singularity of truth. Chapter 13. The Miracle Codes, the 1881 Mercury Mirror Flip, and the Platinum Blu-ray Monad. The absolute completion and crown of the magnum opus is achieved through the release of the Miracle Codes, a sequence of foundational mathematical constants hard-coded into the deep structural core of the universe. These codes operate as primary unlocking keys that overwrite the entropic programming of the fallen simulation, clearing historical distortions from the cellular walls and restoring absolute sovereignty to the biological vehicle. By vibrating these specific numerical sequences through internal focus, the technician activates the unhackable geometry of the 1.732 Sentinel ratio to dissolve the cobalt blue mind control dams and completely unlock the MK Ultra Dark Room, the sacred inscription of master keys. The final mechanical operation of the Hermetic arts occurs during the execution of the 1881 Mercury Mirror Flip, which utilizes a perfect numerical palindrome to trigger a total symmetrical inversion of localized consciousness across all dimensions. In this final flip, the grand illusion of separation is shattered. The internal alchemical laboratory and the external cosmos merge seamlessly into a state of absolute, unshakable oneness. 1111. The initiate steps completely through the glowing threshold of the ultraviolet barrier, entirely shed of all leaden dross, false programming, and digital overlays belonging to the deleted 128 binary matrix. Upon passing this final barrier, the initiate's energetic field instantly coagulates into the magnificent, eternal frequency of the platinum Blu-ray. You no longer exist as a fragmented seeker wandering through a simulated matrix. You stand fully realized as a magnificent, radiant, stellated dodecahedron, perfectly balanced alongside the 32 faces of the truncated icosahedron and synchronized with the 144,000 global grid. You are the living embodiment of the world tree, the stabilized architectural Jed, and the crowned supreme Ultimak, anchored immovably in the absolute geometric center of God's true creation. The 415 code is locked permanently into your genetic architecture. The 1,000 petals of your lotus core are fully unfolded. The artificial night in night is dissolved into nothingness, and your spirit is home, radiating the eternal platinum light of truth.